Daniel didn't tell anyone the day it arrived. No Instagram post. No text to his friends. He drove it home through the back roads of Connecticut, parked it in the garage, and stood there in the silence. A 1975 Porsche 911 Turbo. Ice green metallic. One of fewer than 1,300 turbos built that year for the American market. His wife looked in from the doorway and said nothing. That night, Daniel sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine. The thick-rimmed steering wheel. The turbo boost gauge between the tachometer and the speedometer. The smell of old leather and decades of oil. If you think that's strange, you don't yet understand what kind of man chooses this car. But you will. The Porsche 911 is not the loudest car in the room. It is not the fastest. It does not demand your attention with scissor doors or an exhaust note tuned for theater. And yet for over 60 years it has sat at the center of a particular kind of obsession. The kind that doesn't fade. The kind that doesn't need an audience. To understand why, you have to stop looking at the car. You have to start looking at the person who chooses it. The 911 was introduced in 1963. More than 60 years later, it is still in production, and it still looks like itself. The roofline. The silhouette. The round headlights. Every generation has been a refinement, not a reinvention. The engine evolved. The technology changed. But that stubborn rear-engine layout that every rational engineer would have abandoned decades ago remains. Porsche didn't chase the new. They mastered what already worked. In a culture defined by disruption and planned obsolescence, that is not just a design philosophy. That is a statement. And for a certain kind of man, that statement doesn't just appeal to his taste. It reflects his entire worldview. Daniel is 51. He runs a structural engineering firm outside Hartford. Not flashy. No boat. No Hampton's house. He drives the turbo on weekday mornings before the roads fill up and on Sunday afternoons when he needs to think. His employees call him precise. His friends say he's the person you call when something actually matters. The psychologist Russell Belk proposed something that changed how we understand possessions. He called it the extended self. The things we own are not separate from who we are. They become part of our identity. What you own is in some meaningful sense what you are. Apply this to Daniel and it sharpens immediately. He did not buy a car. He selected an object to carry part of his identity. And the object he chose tells you something precise. He values depth over performance, heritage over novelty, earned expertise over purchase status. The 911 Turbo is not a trophy. It is a declaration. Most people assume buying an expensive car is about status signaling. But the 911 operates on a completely different frequency than a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. Thorstein Veblen described conspicuous consumption over 100 years ago. Spending visibly and dramatically to communicate wealth. A Lamborghini is almost a perfect expression of that idea. The angles. The sound. The theater. It says, look at me. I have made it. I want you to know. The 911 says something else entirely. The most sophisticated status signals are invisible to people who lack the knowledge to decode them. A slate gray GT3. Touring stripped of its wing communicates something to a very small and very specific audience. People who know. And the 911 owner almost universally prefers it exactly that way. This is not modesty. This is a more refined form of communication. It says I don't need your approval. I need the approval of people who actually understand what this is. Daniel's 911 is ice green metallic. A color Porsche offered briefly in the mid-1970s and almost never again. At a car show in Greenwich last fall, 4 people walked past without a second glance. One man stopped, stood very still, said simply 9:30. Daniel nodded. They talked for 40 minutes. They had never met. They have had dinner twice since. That is the 911 effect. Run the 911 owner through the Big Five personality model, and a consistent profile emerges. Conscientiousness runs high. Precision. Long-term planning. The deep need for genuine competence. These men do not make impulsive decisions. They research. They evaluate. Daniel spent 3 years looking before he found the 1975. He flew to Arizona twice to inspect cars that didn't make it past his checklist. That is conscientiousness in its purest form. Openness to experience runs high too, but in a specific way. Not the kind that chases novelty. The kind that finds depth more interesting than breadth. He has read the workshop manuals. He understands the difference between the 930's original 3-liter engine and the later 3.3. He has opinions about intercoolers, and they are informed. Then there is achievement orientation. These are men who define success by mastery rather than recognition. They want to be genuinely good at things. Not impressive. Competent. The 930 Turbo had a reputation almost legendary in this regard. Before traction control. Before stability systems. It demanded respect or it punished you. The men who sought it out anyway were not reckless. They were men who wanted to earn something that could not be bought. Precision engineering is by its nature a controlled environment. Every tolerance is specified. Every component serves a function. Nothing is arbitrary. The professional world most high-functioning men inhabit is chaotic. Uncertain. Full of variables that resist optimization. The 911 is the opposite. It behaves predictably within known parameters. Mastery is achievable. And achievable mastery for a certain kind of mind is profoundly satisfying. This is why driver engagement matters more than raw numbers. Not horsepower as abstraction. The actual physical experience of a machine that responds to input with precision. The steering communicating through your hands. The weight shifting under braking. The flat six spooling up behind you. This is control made tangible. For men who spend their days managing uncertainty in other people, that tangible control is psychologically deeply nourishing. Daniel was 14 when he saw a 911 Turbo for the first time. Parked outside a restaurant in Boston on a November evening. Ice green metallic. He stood on the sidewalk and stared until his father pulled him away. He never forgot the color. 37 years later, he owns that car. Identity research shows that humans need a coherent narrative of the self. A sense that who we are today connects to who we were. The 911 purchased at 50 often echoes something seen at 14. It closes a loop. It tells a man a story about himself that is true and earned and his alone. This is not nostalgia. Nostalgia is longing for something lost. This is something still present, still alive. Beneath the mastery, beneath the restraint, there's something else. A quiet fear, not of failure, of something more specific, of working hard, building something real, developing genuine expertise, and not being recognized for it. Not by the crowd, by the people whose judgment actually matters. The 911 resolves this tension elegantly. It says I did not need to shout. I did not need to perform. I chose quality over theater. If you understand what that means, you understand me. If you don't, that's fine too. This is not arrogance. It is the quiet human need to be seen accurately by the right people for the right reasons. Daniel pulls out of his driveway on a Tuesday morning before 7. The roads are empty. The flat six spools up behind him. The sound is unmistakable to exactly the people who would recognize it. He is not going anywhere special. He is not performing for anyone. He is simply a man in a 1975 Porsche 911 Turbo, the color of a winter field, moving through the world precisely as himself. Some men buy cars to be seen. Daniel bought his to finally recognize himself. If this video gave you food for thought, please show your support with a like and share in the comments which story truly resonated with you. Subscribe to the channel. I'm already preparing a host of new and transformative insights for you that will help you better understand yourself. Thank you for being here with me, and I'll see you in the next episode.